We are blessed. We are holy. We are complete. We are blessed. We are holy. We are complete. We are blessed. I am blessed.
I think the heart is the center of our intelligence, our brain, and our motivation. And when you get any kind of life purpose or calling, particularly as a woman, it goes through your heart. And the heart, as I've experienced it, is motivated by the deeper current of life that took billions of years to create organisms. And here we are on a planet suddenly hitting a limit. So the heart is waking up, and when it does, when you're operating out of love, the heart gets into a coherence. They actually can test it in the heart math. And that coherence aligns with the brain waves, and you become heart intelligent. And the intelligence of the heart is coming from love, but I think it attracts your higher mind. It's not your reactive mind or just your mental mind. And then you get a deeper guidance on what direction to move in. And if you can't look to existing leaders in these old systems, who are you going to look to? You're going to look to the heart-guided life purpose joined.
When we feel that we are called to make a difference in whatever realm that may be, whatever we as an individual woman might have to overcome in ourselves or learn or heal becomes easier to deal with because the call to make the difference is so very strong. We're able to summon up that strength and that courage that says, I will deal with the fear and transcend it. I will heal that woundedness so that I can answer the call.
What do you think the world might look like if there were more women in leadership positions?
I think the world would be prettier.
Golly, that would be a dream. If there were more women presidents, female presidents, world leaders in general, I think it would be phenomenal. It would be such a great thing. And it's too bad that women in some places are still considered second-class citizens, and it's a real shame.
I think we'd have more of a structured type world, and I think that everything would be run more smoothly.
What I'd like to see would be, there would be a lot more peace, I believe, and a lot more unity in the world if it were more women. I don't think it would be as cutthroat.
What do you think the world would look like if more women were in leadership positions?
I'm sorry, but it's kind of, I don't know, I've never thought about it. So,
Compassion, I think a lot less anger, more humanitarian projects, less issues with the budget. I think women are natural organizers and list makers and, go-doers. And instead of talking about a lot of things, they make a plan, they get it done, and they move forward. So I think it would just be a more relaxed, peaceful place.
What qualities or characteristics do you think a good leader has?
I think a good leader is stubborn. They stick to their guns, and they portray a lot of self-confidence.
Humility, I think. I think a lot of courage. I think a lot of vision and direction. But I think it's important to really have an invested interest in people and not just use the leadership for your own personal pride or selfishness, but I think it's having a real concern for people. I think that if you're concerned about people and their well-being, they want to give back. I think it opens people up, and I think that's to me, it's the most important thing.
I was thinking, I have a new understanding of the difference between the masculine and feminine,
And the masculine voice has always kind of stood up with very fine motivation, saying, I'm on my own here. I'm on my own. And everything we've been saying reminds us that the feminine voice is saying, I am not alone. And it works interactively. I am not alone, meaning I have support, I have love, I have a community. It also means I'm not alone here, so I better take care of others, have compassion, be empathetic to their needs. So that two-way street, that's my answer to why it's going to change the world. And the men are going to be so much happier.
When we look at the broad range of women across the planet, we're in different evolutionary stages. And so there are women right now who are, at the very edge of the evolutionary unfoldment, and they are working beyond having to adjust their relationships with men, and they are focused on exactly what the purpose of this film is, which is women as allies of the greater good. And yet there are other women who are just beginning to rise up into a sense of self and self-approval, and they do have to learn how to balance their relationship with men, how to move into the fullness of the self in places where men have been very dominant. And all of that is valid experience. All of that is important, valid experience for the unfoldment of a woman's life, or for the life of women on our planet. And I think we want to make sure that we honor our sisters wherever they are, and whatever is taking place, and whatever is their truth in the moment.
And women who haven't stepped out but are ready to. They're coming from very different backgrounds, different families, different husbands, different neighborhoods. And if they're making a shift in their lives, it's difficult if you don't know how to begin to explain to the people around you that life isn't going to be the same exactly in the future, because mom or wife or daughter or whoever is actually taking on a new piece in their lives now. Because I think that's actually a very real limitation that women feel, is that they're ready to move out, but the habit of who they've been for all these years and how the others around them have expected them to behave is so daunting that they really don't even begin to have the conversation so that they can pave a smooth way. Then they don't have to encounter the disappointment or the anger or the confusion that they might encounter if they don't know how to talk about it with their families and their loved ones.
For me, with my partner, with my husband, someone who I've known for 25 years, since I was young, and different, and being with someone and having such an incredible history with him, and having connectedness through the journey that we've been on, and having this real, rather sudden wave of evolution that's been coming through my life in the past 5 years that I can't stop, and I don't want to stop it, and I'm in love with it, and I want more of it, and really even trying to figure out how does that work in a relationship that has gotten comfortable in a lot of ways. I'm really questioning everything, and I can't imagine really how it feels to be him in this relationship. Like, I get so inspired by listening to all of you and how that shows up and gets resistance or gets embraced, and there's a part of me that really is starting to wonder, like, how much of that am I really being in my relationship? I mean, I feel like I'm just changing, and I'm in knots, and then I'm exploding, and everything is different than it was last week. I mean, everything, like, my shoes don't even fit the same, and and I'm looking at him, and he's like, yeah, you're different than you were when you were 19, but I'm still seeing this person that he'll say that you've trained me to see. How do I know how to break that, right? How to just break out of it and be completeness and be beyond the fear that I won't be loved anymore if I don't look that way, that I won't be received, accepted, that what will that mean? Just that, really, I mean, some just core massive uncertainty.
And I think the process of talking about it, holding that conversation, even if the conversation doesn't have the outcome you hope it would have, the courage to have the conversation, to paint the picture of, this is what's starting to move in me. This is what I'm going to be doing. This is how it's going to impact our family dynamic or our household. And then being willing to allow whatever reorganization or whatever upset might come from it. I mean, support could come as well, but if it didn't, to be okay with that and to move through it with courage and grace and compassion and sensitivity to the impact it has on those around you. But sensitivity to that impact doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stop what you're really feeling called to do. You can't stop, or you shouldn't stop. You need to follow that, talk about it as best you can, and then be patient and deal with it one day, one step, one issue at a time.
It's almost like a silent killer of all these women that are really depressed, and in this fast-paced world we forget to take care of ourselves. We're the last on the list, and it feels hopeless when it's you feel the burdens of all the bills and the little things you have to do every day, just making dinner every night and making it happen each day over and over. It's that settling. It's an inertia, and it's so hard to get out of. And if you can just not think ahead 4 steps, just 2 steps of just doing one thing for yourself. And we need to know, we need support. It's like you have to reach out and ask for help. And people are most often really happy to give it and really feel honored that you want them to help you. I think one of the things that has really helped me move forward toward my calling, it's sort of simple, is everyday moving, feeding animals, walking animals, or taking care of them, or doing an act of kindness for my daughter, or listening to her, taking care of myself. Movement is the first thing for me that helps me get out of my funk, or when my light is off, or I've lost my way, which is often it happens. And then I can find it in about 30 minutes. It can come back to me. It's just a miracle how that happens.
Women who are oriented towards serving in the world, and so many are, get into something called exhaustion depression. And it's when they give and give and give so much, and they're not balancing it with some care and nurturing of the self. Everything is outer directed, and so they lose their strength from within. The psychologist Virginia Satir talked about pouring out tea for everybody, and you get to the point where if you're pouring tea to everybody and never to yourself, the pot becomes completely empty and scorched on the bottom. And women who serve these days and want so much to give can end up being literally burned out. And they're burned out by the routine of what it is they're doing, by their endless giving, and by never taking the time to do something good and nurturing for themselves. And I think that this is very critical. It's the opposite problem to the narcissism and to the self-absorption. And neither one is the state that we want to be in. Women will do their best when they're deeply self-nurturing and living the truth of their life and the thing that gives bliss to them, and they're serving fully and completely.
What if you were given the opportunity to ask for something, for you to receive? What would you ask for?
I would ask for more respect.
When we're young, we receive so much criticism, or we were such sensitive beings. The criticism we receive weighed more heavily than the praise, and that's what stuck, and that's what I've had to work, transcend, and figure out, and it's like skins dropping off of me so that I can embrace who I really am.
When you have a lot of setbacks, and especially when I have a lot of setbacks, what I do is I journal a lot, and I have to get to the crux of the matter, what's really bothering me, and being able to build off of that. And that comes from, childhood, a lot of setbacks and disappointments with coming from a single-parent household and dealing with Dad and I not always, having the best of relationships. Those disappointments, I was depressed for a long while as a teenager and things, and I said, well, if I'm not going to, end it, then I better find out how to live through it. You dig deep. You cry about it sometimes, and you're angry about it, and to me, that's where my perseverance comes in. It's not about necessarily getting it right the first time or the second time. I just knew I had to make it, and that meant trying all different types of avenues to get it done. And I have been fortunate in my life to have those older people in my life that have taken me under their wing and been able to, give me that direction or that wisdom or that shoulder to cry on.
As long as I can remember, I've heard this idea that the older a woman gets, the harder it is to live joyfully, brilliantly, once out of her 20s. Cause the younger who the world obsesses on tries to become. But the longer I live, the more I grow.
All these conversations that I've heard older women throughout my life having are coming back to me now. Remembering one specific night in my mother's home when she had this group of beautiful women around her, and they were all talking about their womanness and their evolution. And hearing this one woman very candidly say, the world doesn't see me as sexy anymore. The world doesn't see me as attractive anymore. The world doesn't really see me anymore. I'm becoming invisible. So where is my worth now? And of course, I understood then that she wasn't thinking she was worthless because she was less hot, you're right? She was less attractive to men and so on and so forth. But she was understanding that society's perception of her was much less because she wasn't those things that she was between the ages of 16 and 25, let's say. And trying to negotiate how to fit in this new place that she was entering into. And I am now at that place, trying to negotiate with myself where I fit. And for that reason, this little search, this little agenda that I have, this mission that I have, to surround myself with as many remarkable women as possible that show me what is possible, that show me their potential in their everyday life, is more important than ever before.
Women were made to build tapestries together, to do things together. That grid that we have to reach across to each other, and it involves trusting ourselves. And that's what I think in this last year, why I'm speaking, why I'm coming out, because the trust for myself and the love for myself, the approval of myself is what is making me go, oh, because I see you in me now. I really do. That was all lip service before, but now I see how much we are interdependent.
Let's talk about trust. So I got trust on my arm here as a reminder to myself to trust myself, that inner voice. When you know something, your first thought actually was the right thought, but you doubted it, you walked over and you did something else, and then you came back to go, oh, I knew that. Start listening to that more, and I am listening to it more. And I feel like, oh, I'm living my big self now. Like, this feels good, I feel good. And that's such a different feeling than living in fear and being stuck in your mind and operating from a place of, well, I should, I shouldn't, huh? It's really like a funny little game that we've learned. So then to come back to the heart. So it's like we filter our mind through the heart to lead.
There's a through line that I call a technology, when something is actually understood in a linear way, even though it may not be a linear phenomenon in the first place, that if you can hold the metaphysical with the scientific, and I'm asking us to look at intuition as a technology in that it's not a linear capacity because it so transcends anything like that. But on the other hand, the human being is able to actually cultivate a technique toward accessing it in a fairly reliable, replicable, demonstrable way. And as we get better and better at that, like any other skill, then we have this capacity that's reliable that we can put to service of a greater good.
It's more than a second sense. It's really a total sense. It's a perception of a different level of reality. And I have never had my intuition, if I followed it, be inaccurate. More often I've had the experience of, I should have followed my intuition on this, my sense of knowing. And that's really what it is, the knowing. On a spiritual level, it's about being one with the one mind and having a direct perception of reality. And it is the way I think any person can be guided in the choices that they make and the things that they do, how they bring something new into creation. You know, what is the way to manage a relationship? What's the conversation that needs to happen? What is something that needs to take place in the workplace? Every aspect of life is open and available to the guidance of intuition, and it's something that we can all develop.
Using intuitive listening at times and places where you find the group or the organization in either a state of confusion or conflict, or just maybe not even as strong as conflict, some disagreement, different points of view. And it takes a certain level, I think, of individual maturity and group or organizational maturity to say, we need to pause, but then we're willing to put aside what our minds are telling us individually are our personal preferences, to set that aside and let's together go into a place where as a collective we are listening. And then out of that listening, to share back into that group, what did we sense after we paused? And it minimizes the conflict and the confusion then, because, and it also gives you the courage. Because if what the intuition was required a bolder step than your mind thought you could take as an individual or as a group, but you heard it through an intuitive deep listening, my experience has been then there's the courage. The group says, okay, well, we might not know how we're going to do it, but it's clear that this is what wants to be done. And then the door's open, right?
And in a loving way, you know, you've got 10 other women that will hold you accountable for that dream you spoke of. You know, that seed gets planted, that vein of gold gets tapped into, and we're all going to reflect that back to you and me. And, you know, it's just having that reflection of the good news. You know, there's so much bad news in the world right now. I think we in coming together, we really highlight the good news and the potentiality.
Megan, you made a really good point in the way the world is right now and what we're doing in Circle that looks so different. And the thought of changing the world is so monumental, but the thought of women having circles is so easy. And just to come together with women and watching all of the changes and transformations that have happened within each individual woman in our circle and how it's rippling out to her entire community because of who she's being in relation to her other friends and to her coworkers and the school and the, you know, this and that, everything she's involved in. There's this ripple effect, and if in every single community women were starting to gather, things would be shifting. We would be waking up out of our, you know, our zombiness, out of our unconsciousness, and really making shifts and changes in the world. That's where it's going to come.
Yeah,
is in the women, and in the women at the local grassroots, changing my family, changing my community, and then it spreads from there.
If they can take the larger view that whatever it is they do as an individual, they are not acting alone, that there are hundreds and thousands and possibly millions of women who are in this mindset, they've caught this vision, And so they can think of themselves as accompanied by all their sisters as they move out there as a single person to volunteer in a hospital or what have you, that they're thinking, I wonder how many other women are doing this for the first time today. Because I think there's a real power in that collective, because it seems as if things can shift if it's not all on your shoulders.
You know, the world's in a crisis, and it's the women that are the ones that are going to turn it around. It has to be the women. And if we woke up and just got who we really are, we have to spend time with ourselves, we have to meditate, we have to get to know yourself, to know who you really are, to appreciate yourself. If we all did that, just that turning on our own lights all around, like all the lights turned on, we could just shift in a weekend, that quickly. Women are fast and they're powerful. It's like the waves before they hit the beach. It's all happening all over the world, but I want to do it with all my women friends. I want to be the waves crashing on the beach. Come out and do this together. Trust each other.
There's a universe of women out there that get their strength not only from their inner voice, but from their sisters, and who pride themselves, who fill themselves every time they get the opportunity to lend a hand to their sisters. If we could do everything in our ability to put these groups of women up on a pedestal, to shine the light on these groups of women, just imagine how much of a change would result.
As we are coming into power, there's no way around it, we're coming into power, that I think because there's something innate in the woman who will yield to welcome the male and welcome the larger and expand the circle. There's just something within what it means, what I call feminine wisdom.
Enlarging and
that
expanding.
naturally wouldn't say, okay, we've got the power now. I mean, that's not the way we tend to be.
I think of the image as let's say maybe the masculine is the riverbanks, right? And the feminine is the flow, is the river. And you look at it, right, you see that, the aerial view, and it's like, well, the masculine is holding the feminine, right? It's strong and it's holding it, and the woman's and you got to flow where the riverbanks take you. But the reality is different than that. The reality is that the flow actually shapes the banks. Wow. You know what? Sometimes the flow is a flash flood.
Right.
And sometimes it is a raging, out of control, and that's the range of the feminine, right? From the trickle to the flash flood. And when I learn how to bring that to bear and allow a man to meet me there, I think then we have something that works, that can evolve our cellular memory.
What I hear too is in that cellular memory that we each have, but if in the male cellular energy, there that strength and that power and purpose, that what goes with that in the now is an incredible responsibility that I think a lot of men feel, to stand in that place, to be the strong banks that don't get eroded from the side. I think sometimes we lose sight of that. Like that standing in the power, that the relationship that men have to their history is also very burdensome for them at times, to be that. What do they do when they don't feel strong? When they feel open and spacious and soft, like where can they be that? Is it okay anywhere? And so that potential for evolving to a place where we both see each other in our absoluteness, right? In our absolute femininity, but that we can also see the feminine inside the masculine and the masculine inside the feminine, and that it's not such a line to be held or crossed or uncrossed or whatever that is, because I think there's fear there too.
I think for many years I have felt there's a sort of unbalance coming through women who are trying to model the masculine qualities better so that they can step into positions of power according to the old male leadership model.
What do you think the world might look like if there were more women in leadership positions?
You know, I don't know, because the leaders that we've had, the females that have been in leadership positions, I think some have made a difference for positive and some have not. I see, unfortunately, from my perspective in business, I see that women many times hurt each other. I think women have not necessarily done their best when they got to those positions, and they certainly haven't brought their fellow women with them.
I think I'm becoming more feminine in my leadership, in that I'm thinking more inclusively these days. And I used to be very task-oriented. Let's just get it done. And that was masculine. Like you said, I took on some masculine qualities in order to override my fear of leading. But now I'm not afraid of it anymore, so I'm really allowing more feminine qualities to come into the way I approach things. You have to have the courage to say no to the expedient if it's negating the welfare of the larger group. You have to be brave enough to stand up in front of a board meeting and say, no, we can't do it that way. And at the same time, allow the rest of the group to say what they need to say. So, that's heart-centered to me.
And see, that's where part of what I think you were speaking about earlier, about how the feminine leadership quality also values process. Mm-hmm. That in order to get to that place as a group, such as us here, or in a community or an organization, there's a certain amount of honoring process that has to be built, I think, over time and tested through the metal of some challenges to get us to the place where we are willing to trust and to listen deeply and put aside personal agenda.
And when you lead from your heart center, everything that you see through the eyes of the spirit, you hear through ears that are spiritual, and your whole life takes on a different aspect because you are leading from the heart.
You just gotta let go, yeah. I'm choosing to let go, and let my heart lead the way. Dum, 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 dum.
The Dalai Lama said that the closest aspect of God's love is mother love. And that when a child doesn't get mother love, that sets a stumbling block for their whole life. And what I love about women who have awakened is they are willing to share that unconditional love with at least half of humanity that didn't get it. There just wasn't, for whatever reason, a divine feminine mother able to welcome them to the world. And it could have been war, it could have been schizophrenia, drugs, it could have been grief, it could have been, but as we are talking about being women in leadership, there's something within our heart that keeps radiating out that connects to the nobleness, the wholeness that's in those of us who didn't get that. But isn't it beautiful that the mother heart will not let half of the world starve?
The dinner table is actually the main focus of where we do our work. And I think that's kind of interesting because often I notice that these kids are really hungry, especially the boys. They're in adolescence and they're in their growth spurt and they need to be nourished. And a lot of them don't have adequate food. And at my house, I make a point of having nutritious food. I try to have just organic food and lots of live food. I just really believe in feeding them and nourishing them and giving them what they need and an allowance if they're there when my kids are getting their allowance. And it's just, I love to be able to flow this to these kids. Some of them have never had a kind word until they've started showing up at my house. And what a huge honor that is to be someone who feeds them on so many levels like this. So it's not what I do for a living, and you know, it's just part of how we live, and I'm really thrilled that it has captured the attention of people, because I think that we need to take it very seriously what's happening to our kids, and too many kids are abandoned, and too many people think it's not their problem, and it's everybody's problem. It's our problem. It's our job to guide them and to light the way and to love them and to give them what they need and what they want whenever we can. You know, give them the extras and celebrate their amazing, beautiful spirits, even if they seem like, you know, they're coming to you really damaged. There's a light in there, and it's so beautiful to behold.
Early on, when I began moving out of a life that was really filled with a lot of despair and pain, even though there was some fairly substantial success in it, was someone said, they quoted Albert Schweitzer, and he said, "I may never know you or meet you, have the privilege of knowing what you do for a living, but I know one thing that's absolutely true about you. Unless you find a way to love and serve, you will never be happy." And somehow my soul knew there had to be something profoundly true. I just thank Albert Schweitzer who said that, because it wakened my soul. And then I thank Corinthians that said, hey, we all have gifts, everybody. And they're essential for the world awakening. That's the greatest good news there is. And that's why I'm totally confident if our generation doesn't make it, the next generation will, because we're wired to create heaven on earth. I believe it with every cell of my being.
I remember Jean Houston many years ago talking about women rising to partnership and rising to the level of their sovereignty. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says the world will be saved by the Western woman. And so is this being activated in us? Has it been the divine unfoldment all along? It's a little bit hard to say. I just know that it is happening, and that it must happen, and that it really takes everybody on the planet rising to the greater truth of who they are now to even begin to address the things that are taking place. We need everybody's brilliance. We need everybody's love. We need everybody's talents and abilities to come forward. And so yes, there is a crisis, and yes, the crisis is an opportunity and a birth. And women are just naturally feeling within themselves that it's time to grow, to rise up, to express, to share their voice, to speak their truth, to work together, to be about the greater good.
A change is moving across the nations, yeah. We choose courage and real communication. It's 'cause we know there's no time for wasting. The state of this world is our creation. Just take a good look around this place. Turn off your TV now, it's time to face this reality. Yo, this is the real show. The human race, we've been so disgraceful. We say we want peace, yet we're so wasteful. Killing all the life on earth to take up space for what? Yeah, we all want the same thing. But more stuff, happiness that won't bring. Yeah, we all know that we get what we give, and time's up now. How we gonna live if you don't like what you see? And the pain's just too much to believe. See, I could feel it calling me. I'ma be the change, it's all in me. One world in harmony. One world, one family. I ain't waiting on nobody, 'cause I'ma be the change. The change is me. Ooh, ooh, oh, oh, oh. Yeah. Ooh, ooh, oh, oh, oh. Be the change.
Om.